So, hello Dan.
Hey Sumit, how are
I'm
you?
so glad. I'm fine, and I hope you are doing well in your life too.
I
And
am.
I'm so glad to be face to face with the person who has played an instrumental role in my recovery journey. And I can't put into the words the upload for your incessant work that you are putting all together in uploading your daily videos, which is helping globally the chronic pain sufferers.
Thank you.
And once again, thanks with all my heart. So it's an honor once again to face you on virtual screen. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Sumit Kumar from India, from the state of Himachal Pradesh. And I defeated 6 years worth of neck pain, debilitating neck pain, and some other issues in my childhood like chest pain, throat pain, anxiety, and many other issues. And after I came to know about the attention myositis syndrome, Dr. Sarno, and then I found his page and watched his daily videos, took his pain test, and then when I was convinced that I have TMS, there was no looking back. And I can say I'm living my life absolutely normally, doing all the activities and without worrying about the pain or symptoms anymore. And when you said the last time we had the interview in the April month of 2022, and in the last question I asked you, I discussed with you that I'm looking forward to the days when my pain is absolutely gone. And you told me that that day will come when you stop looking for it to come. And that really hit me. That line really hit me. And I applied that in my life. And I can say that I'm living my life to the full joy now. Again, once again, thanks to you. So today we are here to discuss some of the most, we can say, frequently mind-boggling questions that every TMS sufferer goes through while beginning his journey. They have so many doubts that whether this could be TMS or not, are my symptoms TMS or not, and how should they proceed in their journey, and many more. So, first of all, before that, I would just like to add one thing that recently I've been reading a book, The Brain, The Story of You. There is also a BBC documentary on this book, Brain, The Story of. I can't remember the author's name. I can't find the book nearby. So, audience can just look up the name of the book, The Brain, The Story of You. And I was absolutely shocked, and my mind was blown after reading. I have read it to the halfway yet, and it explores the unconscious horizon of our brain, and it just unmasks the mysteries of the brain that we are not aware of the games our unconscious mind is playing with us. We are literally 99% of our lives, our decisions are controlled by our unconscious mind. This is a disorder. It's called synesthesia, and everyone should look it up. It is mainly Greek for two Greek words. Synesthesia. Synth means uh, together, and aesthesia means perception. When two perceptions come together, so basically, the people who have synesthesia, when they one of their sense is triggered, it triggers some other sense also. Just they can literally taste the rainbow. The people suffering with synesthesia, just by looking at the rainbow, they can get a taste of the rainbow. They can see colors in the alphabets or letters, and they can literally have a visual perception, 3D visual perception with some sounds. Like a bang can produce a three-dimensional square or rectangle in the brain. So my point is here that brain, who are in doubt that can brain produce these symptoms, brain can absolutely produce any kind of symptoms in anyone's body, and it's been proven with the researches. And so coming to the our session here, I would like to ask Dan a very fundamental TMS 101 question, that
Okay.
what exactly is TMS, and what what are the symptoms of TMS, and how come somebody have so many severe symptoms with TMS, and most of the people are untouchable to this concept. So I would like Dan to shed some light on this very first question.
All right. Well,
for the people who are coming to this video for the first time, who have no idea what TMS is. So
okay.
Please.
So let's go back to the beginning. Dr. Sarno figured out that the brain creates symptoms like pain. He originally started focusing on back pain, but it expands to other types of pains, headaches, shoulder pain, knee pain, whatever. His theory was that the brain perceived our repressed emotions, stress and tension as the danger. And his theory was that the brain created the pain to distract us from these overwhelming, repressed negative emotions. Okay? And that theory has proven correct for the most part. Because if the brain perceives danger and its job is to keep us safe and keep us alive, what does it do? It turns on a warning signal, like pain, to protect us from this perceived danger. So what I've done is I've taken Dr. Sarno's original theory, which really seemed to focus a lot on the emotional state, right? The repressed emotions, the present conscious emotions, and the brain's perception of danger. And instead of just saying this is all about emotions, I've said it can be all sorts of things. Work stress, financial stress, worry about our physical condition, injuries that we're worried may not recover, that we may not heal from properly, surgeries, illness that really freaks us out. There's all sorts of reasons that can cause the brain to go into a high degree of perceived danger. Symptoms can result, and then we become fearful of those symptoms. So the fear and the attention we give those symptoms is what keeps it going. So you asked in a printed question about oxygen deprivation or blood supply restriction.
Yeah.
I don't know that is the mechanism in the body to create the symptoms. That was his theory, and it was a theory based on a couple of autopsies that, in a study somewhere. But none of the current TMS mind-body doctors are speaking about oxygen deprivation. They can't prove it, therefore they're not speaking about it, because even if we could speak about it, then that's going to lead a whole bunch of people down this, well, how can I increase oxygenation? I believe it's 100% brain controlled, right?
Yeah.
Because oxygen deprivation is a physical thing. And so generally the medical approach is let's fix the physical problem. Let's do an oxygen chamber. Let's get our heart rate up. Let's do massage to increase blood flow to the area to increase oxygen. And maybe that can help, but it's a temporary fix, because if the brain is still perceiving that you have a bad neck, it's going to keep turning on the warning signal, right? And all the amount of breathing exercises to increase oxygen is not going to result in a permanent cure if your brain is still thinking you got a bad neck. So,
yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned the word central sensitization. That is
this is Howard's theory.
Yeah, central sensitization is current medicine's term for the nervous system being very hypersensitive. It's the same thing. What controls the nervous system? The brain. And if the brain is perceiving danger,
absolutely,
it amplifies the nervous system. So normal signals from the body come in and are interpreted by the brain as dangerous. So I don't know if that answered your question.
I got this, and I hope many of our audience doubt may have been cleared. That so the repressed emotions theory is no longer in the trend. We can say that.
Well, it's still valid. It's still valid. That's just one potential perceived danger. There are plenty of people whose emotional state it's fairly chaotic, and their brain perceives the emotions.
We can, as you say, yeah, okay. As you say, we should focus on the current emotions instead of the past buried emotions. We should not dig in the old graves. I heard you saying that.
That
It's
is
not gonna do any.
that's my opinion, because we don't, in my opinion, we don't really have past emotions. We have right now emotions about our past. So I'm not convinced of the value in going back and digging up all the past experiences so we can re-experience them. If those old traumas are still affecting us today, they're right now emotions. So I don't think excavating our past and looking for what happened when we were 6 years old, I don't know that that's going to take a 35-year-old or a 50-year-old person and make them feel safe today. So my approach is perceived danger is a problem. How do we teach a brain we're safe? Emotionally, physically, mentally. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense.
Okay. So that, yes, absolutely. So my next question is, while coaching the peoples or listening to them while the interviews, what kind of normal abnormalities you came across apart from spine issues?
All sorts of
it's for addressing many people's question that are my symptoms TMS? Is my tinnitus TMS? Is my vertigo tinnitus? Is my stomach issues or food allergies? I have one audience. She's having difficulty with trying some foods. She's getting all kind of acne and allergies, so she can't eat some nutrient-rich foods. Also, she's not able to eat them. So, how would you address that question?
So there's a couple of questions in there. The first question is, what are normal abnormalities? As we get older and older, our bodies age, and we have disc degeneration. We can develop disc bulges, disc herniations. We can have minor tears, sometimes major tears in our rotator cuff, our meniscus in our knee. We can have bone spurs in our joints. We can have all sorts of things that are not perfect. And what's really interesting is all MRIs are actually normal, because all MRIs actually have some type of abnormality that's not a perfect anatomical picture. The key here is when Dr. Sarno originally mentioned this term normal abnormalities, what he was saying is the thing you see on your x-ray, the thing you see on your MRI, that's not the cause of the pain. And I was just looking at some numbers like disc degeneration, essentially arthritis to a degree. At my age, like 80% of people have a certain amount of disc degeneration. 80% of people with no symptoms at all will have the same type of disc degeneration. So when a doctor says, oh, you've got pain, you've got degeneration, okay, that's a coincidence. It's not proof. So the concept normal abnormality means our bodies are full of things that are not perfect, and that's okay because they don't cause pain in the vast, vast, vast majority of cases. All right. There's two things. There's acute pain and there's chronic pain. Acute pain is you fall down and you break your wrist. That's acute pain. And if they set it properly and you keep it still for a while, the body heals. And the pain from that break goes away in about a week or two, and then it becomes strong enough to use normally over the course of 6 weeks, 8 weeks. Acute pain is from injuries, surgeries, some infections, right? Chronic pain is when
as Arnold said that the largest bone, femur, it also gets healed within 6 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. So chronic pain is when the danger alarm gets stuck and it stays on. So my opinion is that can happen from a true injury or surgery. So I've known plenty of people who had knee surgery. They were freaked out about the knee surgery. They were so worried about the pain afterwards that even though the knee healed from the surgery, 3 years later, their knee still hurts. That's TMS. That's the brain perceiving danger and keeping the alarm stuck, turned on. There's other cases where people have an onset of TMS, perceived danger pain, and the fear and the belief that I have something wrong with me is what keeps that persistent, perhaps for a long time. I had 13 years worth of pain. My body was never the problem, right? So I think that's really important for people to recognize that even though you've got an MRI, look here, I've got this report that shows I've got this, and that at L4 and L5 and C1, C2. Okay, where's the proof that those things on the MRI are causing the symptoms? They're not. So the good news is we can actually determine if something is structural or TMS based on how the pain or symptoms behave, right? Because structural problems don't fluctuate a lot. Some people will say, I went on vacation, I didn't hurt at all. But when I came home, I started hurting again. A structural problem doesn't take a vacation. Structural problems don't move. Some people will say, well, it hurt on my left side of my neck, but now it's on my right side of my neck, for example. Or, you know, my back pain moved from the right side to the left side, usually lower back. Sometimes it moved up to the mid back. Structural problems don't do that. So there's specific ways of doing that. I have a pain test that people can take. And Dr. Schubner, who's also one of the leading mind-body doctors, has an FIT assessment.
Yeah.
For anybody interested, painfreeu.com/start. Both of the assessments are there. So if anybody's new to this and they're saying, well, I don't know, I think I've got a physical problem, these two assessments on that page I just gave will help you figure out if your pain is behaving like TMS or some structural problem. So there's an easy way to determine it. Now you are
absolutely. I will paste the links for the audience.
Okay.
When I upload the video, or I will paste the links for your pain test. And as you told that the knee or back keeps hurting even after years of surgery, I have a thing to add in this. I think this might have to do with the social beliefs that we hear from our society. As in our society, it's a saying that your injuries should hurt in the winters, and they will hurt if you have injured yourself. And even if you are healed, someone will say to you, oh, take care in the winter, it might hurt. So that your brain has now this input, it may manifest that symptom in the winters. And many people avoid the activities like bending or exerting their knees because they are afraid that this might hurt in the winters. So I think everybody should educate the brain about the because there are many research, as you told, that many people have normal abnormalities. So I came across a research, rather group of bunch of researches. I got my hands on a PDF from the Texas Pain Society's website. It says I'm not yes, spinal pathology in the asymptomatic peoples, and it lists all the researches back from the 1968 till the 2019, and they all point to the same conclusion that MRI are rarely normal. You are gonna find something, whether it's bulging, herniation, stenosis, or facet degeneration, or whatever, nerve compressions, and they are found in many people without having any symptom. So I'm gonna upload my next video on my channel Mission Pain Free on that very topic, that people should not be afraid of their imaging findings. Just like graying of hairs and wrinkling of the skins, it's gonna happen. Degeneration is unavoidable, but it's not dangerous. They should be educated. Coming to the next question, one of my audience was asking that he was diagnosed with the facet atrophy, and doctor told that he should not sit for more than 20 minutes at a stretch. And now he have diagnosed himself with TMS. He has taken your pain test, and he's convinced that he's a victim of TMS. But the words of the doctor are still echoing in his brain that if I'm studying for more than 30 minutes sitting, I might gonna cause further damage to my spine. So how can people come out of that vicious loop? Because it's not that easy to simply vanish the fear in one click. I think it takes time and education and proper facts. Again and again, we have to reinforce. What is your take on this?
Your answer is perfect. It takes time, education, accurate knowledge. When you understand that your symptoms are behaving like TMS, then sitting's not dangerous, right? And so you can learn enough to make a new decision that says, the doctor was well-meaning, but the doctor is incorrect because my pain is from TMS. So I talk about some 4 fundamentals of really moving forward. Number 1, what causes pain in the first place? Perceived danger. Sarno called it TMS, tension myositis syndrome, then later the mind-body syndrome. That's what causes pain, period. Sometimes it's a legitimate injury or surgery, Other times it's just the brain creating it based on perceived danger. So that's what causes it. Does it apply to me? Second fundamental, take the assessments. I know you'll be sharing the link. Once you know I passed the assessments, it clearly indicates TMS or perceived danger pain, then make a decision that I'm going to focus here. And anytime my brain goes, yeah, but what about the doctor saying I shouldn't sit for longer than 20 minutes at a time? That's when you can go, that's incorrect. I'm not going to believe that anymore. And it's not going to work the first time you say that. It takes repetition. Our brains tend to believe the things we think and say most often, right? If somebody tells you a lie often enough, you eventually start to believe it. Even if we tell somebody else a lie, we start to believe our own lies. The brain just can't tell the difference between a truth and a falsehood. It just believes the one that is told most often, and the one that's told little is. So if you just say, I think I have TMS, oh my God, I'm in trouble. The doctor told me this. My MRI says this. I think I'm okay. The ratio's off. The brain's going to believe this because it's the most dominant thought. So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, that explains a lot. So I think we missed a fragment of a question about food allergies I've been asking you about.
Okay. So when we are in the stress response, fight or flight, it's called, right? What happens? Our eyes dilate, we take in more information, our breathing increases, our heart rate goes faster, our blood pressure goes up to take this oxygenated blood and pump it into our arms and legs, so we will be capable of handling this life-threatening situation. That's what the fight or flight response is for. I am in imminent danger. So when the heart fills the extremities with oxygenated blood, we can run faster, we can fight more, right? The entire goal of the fight or flight process, evolutionary-wise, human biology, physiology, is survival. The problem is many of us, especially when we have things like chronic pain or other chronic symptoms, we end up in the fight or flight response all the time just because we're scared to death of our symptoms. And so what else the brain does when optimizing for survival is it takes 2 things that are kind of part of the autonomic nervous system, the immune system and the digestion system. And it says, we don't need those now. We have a tiger in front of us that's looking really hungry. It's going to eat us. Don't worry about digesting lunch. Don't worry about fighting some bacteria or common cold. Doesn't matter. We have a tiger in front of us. We have to get away, optimize for survival, right? So when we have persistent fight or flight, persistent stress response, the immune system and digestion system are suppressed. So food intolerances, food allergies, more frequent colds, allergies, Those are immune responses, aren't they? And digestion responses. And so if we are chronically stressed, our digestion is not going to work perfectly, and we're going to be less likely to tolerate foods that should be perfectly digestible without symptoms if we're not in stress. The problem is people start to develop food intolerances. They go to doctors and they say, oh, you got to avoid this, that, and that. Let's cut your diet down from everything to these 3 foods. And people get terrified of food, which perpetuates the symptom, because every time they go to eat, they're terrified. Diet or the digestion and the immunity is suppressed, which keeps it going. It's all still perceived danger that's driving the symptoms. And I always say, our brain, our body is working perfectly. It's not flawed. You're not sick. The brain and the nervous system is working perfectly, but we're operating on misinformation and fear. And when the brain has bad data and a lot of fear, the alarm systems are going off all over the place, right? So hopefully that answers the question on the food. And so if you've got autoimmune issues, digestion issues, relax, get out of the stress response as much as possible. More self-care, less stressing, less fear about the foods. And when the brain recognizes that the food's not the issue, the digestion system gets back up to normal, so does the immune system, and before you know it, you can start eating normal food. Reactions to food are really fear responses. It's as if you're saying to the brain, I'm eating something and it's poisonous. Yes, your body's going to react because your brain is saying, holy cow, we're in trouble. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So instead of freaking out about all the gut issues, one should address the stress. As they say that the root cause of all diseases is basically stress response. So I just realized that I forgot to introduce you, but then I thought Dan Buglio needs no introduction in the TMS community. Everyone knows you. So once again, those who are missing the point, I'm having this FAQ session with the Dan Buglio, TMS experts who has suffered with the years of chronic pain and found his way to healing using mind-body syndrome. And now he's running the website Pain Free You and the same channel on the YouTube, painfreeyou.com. And any of you, if you are having any doubts where to start, Dan has a vast list and resources on his website. You should visit. I will paste the website link in the description too. And Dan also runs group coaching sessions. If someone needs professional help, they can also think about joining his group coaching sessions.
Thank you.
So coming to the next question then, in Dr. Shubna's approach, that pain is learned pathways, the learned neural circuits. It get learned, get ingrained in the brain somehow. So suppose someone has absolutely normal MRI, no herniations, no bulging, nothing. So how come his brain has learned the pain of disc bulging or herniation when it has not experienced that pain? Yeah, maybe I'm wrong here. Brain needs not experience any pain; it produces the pain. So can we say that brain has all the database of pain already installed in the brain server? So it knows what disc herniation should feel like or what bulging should feel like. Can that explain? Are you getting my point?
I
If
do.
someone,
I do.
yeah,
I don't think the brain strategically says, let me make pain that seems like a disc bulge or herniation. I think the brain
yeah,
simply creates pain as a warning signal based on the brain's perception of danger. So in my case, my
yeah,
pain started by bending over. I had a back spasm, started 13 years worth of pain. Years and years later, every time I would bend over, my brain would make my back hurt. Why? Because my brain thought he's got a bad back. He's had many episodes where bending over has caused a big spike in pain. Bending over is dangerous. So
was that after your diagnosis or before diagnosis? The medical level scoliosis before that or after that? The episodes of pain.
Okay, I didn't really have a diagnosis. I didn't have scoliosis. My body, if you've seen it on my website,
We so-called medical level.
my body was very twisted. That's not scoliosis. That was my body being pulled out of whack by muscle tension created by the brain and created by the pain. And so the diagnosis.
Did you go for an MRI?
I never had a back MRI. The reason I never had a back MRI is because about a year into, I had back x-rays in my 30s, and that was normal, some disc degeneration. But I learned about Dr. Sarno about a year in, and I said, okay, my body's fine. I have a 30-year-old body. I should not hurt. So I never pursued getting an MRI because I knew, well, even if they find something, that's not proof of anything. So I was fortunate that I never really got too medicalized by doctors who are saying, you're broken, you're broken, you're broken. The point is, what the doctor diagnoses you with doesn't matter as long as you rule in this thing called TMS by determining how your symptoms are behaving. That's how we determine it. Let's rule out the life-threatening. You know, if you have chest pain, go get your heart checked out. If you have head pain, make sure you don't have a tumor or an aneurysm or something going on. Let's make sure you don't have some infectious disease. So a doctor can very quickly determine, is this person in life-threatening danger? They're very good at that. That's their specialty. Now, once you know you're not in danger, your life is not in danger, you can rule in this mind-body concept with the assessment and the pain test. Once you know that your symptoms are behaving like the brain is creating them, you can set aside the medical diagnosis, because the medical diagnosis is just, it's their opinion, not necessarily what's truly causing the symptoms. That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for the elaborate answer. So the next question, when MRI shows bulging or herniations in asymptomatic peoples, so how come they didn't feel the pain when it happened? It's a very basic question.
Because bulges and herniations don't cause pain.
They don't cause pain all time. It rarely, we can say 2 or 3% chances of or occurrence of herniations. I think I read it somewhere, but only 3% disc herniations causes pain. So it might be different bodies react in different ways. Can we say that? Why does it have to cause pain for some individuals and not to others? I think coping mechanism has to do something with that.
I think it's the severity of the herniation, whether or not it truly at the time of herniation impacts a nerve.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not convinced that every herniation happens like that. Sometimes it could just start.
It's a gradual.
It could be gradual. A bulging happens a little bit, and eventually it goes from a bulge to a herniation gradually. Sometimes it's acute. If you take a heavy fall or in a car accident, sometimes herniations and bulges can happen in that instant. But if the brain doesn't perceive danger, it's not going to turn on pain. Right? There are cases where injuries will create pain. But in the vast majority of cases, what you see on the MRI is not going to cause pain because the brain's not seeing that as a problem.
It reminds me of one.
So let me just share this. There are cases where people say, I have moderate pain. They go get an MRI. Who says, look here, you've got a bulge and a herniation. And then what happens to the pain once they get scared by the MRI?
Yeah.
That's proof it had nothing to do with the herniation. It was there before the MRI, but now that they have the report and the doctor saying there's a problem, the perception of danger just went up, and therefore the pain went up. The brain's always in control, always, even in a real injury. So if your brain doesn't perceive that you herniated your disc, it's not going to turn on the pain. And some of it could be very gradual.
Yeah. I remember the instance when I went for an X-ray. When I stood in front of the machine, my pain level went from 2 to 10 instantly, and my neck was all that stiff. I can't move it. But that time I had no idea about TMS, so I was obviously scared. And then the doctor pointed out, look, here is some space reduction in the C4 or C5 area. I don't remember exactly which area he referred to. I don't look my old X-rays now. Don't look for them. They are just rotting away somewhere.
Don't matter.
Eating dust. And yeah. And your car accident, when you mentioned car accidents, it reminds me of one fact that the Howard Schubner mentioned, that there is a nation, I think its name is Lithuania. Their whiplash injuries doesn't exist there, because people have been in car accident there, but they don't suffer the chronic whiplash injuries, because in their society there is no concept of whiplash and the chronicity of it. So it explains my earlier mentioning that our social beliefs and what we have been fed by our neighbors also contribute to the onset of symptoms, what we are going to experience in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then, coming to the next question, people who are in so much pain and they have taken the pain test, but they have no access to TMS doctors, as in India there are none, I think. So, is the pain test sufficient for them to diagnose themselves as they are the victim of TMS?
I believe once they have the knowledge and understand the cause of the pain test, as well as the FIT assessment that Dr. Schubner put together, that's on my getting started page as well. If you can answer any one of those questions positively, that means, according to a doctor who's been doing this stuff for decades, that means your symptoms are behaving like TMS. So the assessments are there to self-diagnose. And by the way, if you were to go and see a TMS doctor, you know what they would do? They would ask you the same kind of questions in the pain test and in the FIT assessment. So they're going to ask you what your experience was so that they can match it against this criteria that says, yes, it's TMS. The doctor doesn't have some magic, formula. They're going to be asking you the same questions that are in these standardized pain tests and assessments. So yes, people can absolutely do the assessment. And then when they start to look at and learn, they can also say, well, my experience is this. For example, some people wake up and they feel okay, but by lunchtime, their pain starts to climb.
Yeah.
Okay, so if it's your body, how come you can be very low pain in the morning, but then it goes crazy at noon? How does that make any sense if it's a structural problem? The only thing that makes sense is that the brain has learned we start hurting in the afternoon. So there are experiences like that everybody watching can start to evaluate. How does my pain or my symptoms, how do they behave? And if it were structural, if I were truly ill, does it make sense how my symptoms are behaving? And usually the answer is no, it doesn't. You have evidence that your symptoms are created by a brain. And again, I keep going back to symptoms are created by the brain perceiving danger. The brain's primary job is safety and survival, period. And if the brain perceives danger, it's going to turn on these warning signals called pain or other symptoms. And with fear and attention, these symptoms can become chronic. Make sense?
Yes, the perceived danger pain. Yes, perceived danger pain is the key message here. everyone should reinforce it that it is the perceived danger that is causing the symptoms and not any structure issue. Okay, then. So the next question is somewhat controversial. Uh, I think I tried to get it addressed earlier in my interview, but your take was crystal clear that we can't comment about the medications. But my question is, as I said, that the people who have no access to TMS doctors, how are they going to wean off the medications? Because obviously they are not going to take them for the rest of their life because there is nothing physical. And if they visit any osteopath or physiotherapist, they are every time they are gonna give something to them for their pain, whether it's an ointment or massage oil or painkillers. So how should people proceed when it comes to medication? Who should they consult before withdrawing or before leaving the medications
So
when it comes to stopping? Yeah,
I believe we can continue to,
yeah,
if the medications are providing you a benefit, if they are helping reduce
yeah,
the pain levels, my perception, and this is not medical advice, I'm not a doctor, but my perception,
yeah, absolutely.
if you're getting a benefit, be nice to yourself, take the medication until you no longer need to. And when you no longer need the medication, then you can go to the doctor who prescribed it to you in the first place and say, hey, doctor, I don't hurt anymore. What's the safe way to come off of this medication? They'll say, what do you mean you don't hurt anymore? I don't hurt anymore. Oh, the medication must be working well. No. I've been involved in a mind-body approach, and you may not agree with that, but I really don't hurt anymore, or my pain has come down significantly, and I no longer want to be on the medication. What is the appropriate taper schedule so I can safely get off the medication? And so I think it's a matter of take it until you don't need to anymore, and then just simply say to the doctor, I don't need pain management. I don't need treatments. I don't need chiropractic. I don't need acupuncture. I don't need injections. I don't need pain management because I'm feeling great. Help me get off these medications. And a doctor with integrity will help you with that. They may not understand how you got pain-free, but they should be
Yeah,
able to at least say safely, okay, well, if you're not hurting, then there's no reason to keep taking the meds. Here's how to do it. And they can reduce dosages over time. The other thing I will tell anybody who is planning on reducing medications, even under a doctor's care, is stay away from medication withdrawal communities online. Why? Because a
yeah,
lot of those communities, whether it be anti-anxiety or benzodiazepines and all that, there's a lot of people who have a lot of symptoms as a result of reducing medications. And now I'm not saying that to scare anybody here, but there are plenty of people who have had severe reactions. Many of those people read all about those severe reactions before they ever started tapering. And basically there's an
yeah.
entire
All those
community.
negative influence.
Yeah, there's an entire community that is terrified that their brain has been injured or damaged by the medications. And if they reduce it even a tiny bit, or if they take an antibiotic 2 years later, or they have alcohol, the GABA receptors, all sorts of belief systems out there. And it's all fueled by fear. And in many cases, being terrified that the medication has messed them up. So if you're going to do this, one, do it under the care of a doctor. Stay away from what I call bad neighborhoods. Don't go to a community that all they're doing is talking about all the horrible stuff. And just assume lots of people have gotten off of medications safely without big problems. Because even
Yeah,
when we're reducing medications, you know what's in play? The brain's perception of danger. If the brain thinks that
yeah,
off of medications is horrible and scary, guess what? You're going to get symptoms. So work with your doctor, but expect it to go well. And if you have some symptoms, same thing as I talk about for all the other stuff, remain calm, trust it. Things will settle down. Don't freak out. Don't go researching and terrifying yourself even more. Hope that makes sense.
yeah. That was very helpful then. In my case, when I stopped my medication, it was my own decision. And after reading about TMS and making my own conclusions, and the very key or the turning point for me was just reading the research data, which highlighted that these are normal abnormalities. So my fear just vanished because I was feared that there is something structurally wrong, and how I'm gonna proceed with my life the coming years. So I got a big relief, and the fear just dropped from 100 to 0, and that was the turning point in my recovery. And many people, they are who are stuck in the recovery, they should take solace in the fact that you are normal, there's nothing to fix. As Dan keeps saying, there is nothing to be fixed. That should be a big relief. And proceed with the medications as the Dan advised you. And one thing I would like to add, Dan, they should also steer away from the other chronic pain groups where people keeps whining about the scary symptoms and the relapses and all that stuff. I think they should also avoid those kind of group where mind-body approach is not validated or accepted. I remember the instance from the last week. I keep making people aware about the TMS in the chronic pain groups, and there suddenly there is one thread, and I advise them they should look into the healing back pain by Dr. Sarno, and all of them, I think they were Australian fellows, and they started bashing me. You are scammer, you are scammer, get lost. And I said, okay, fine, your life, your decision. I can't say more. So these things happen. So
what I would recommend is if you're intending on helping people, help the people who are open to it, because I stay out of the standard pain communities online. I stay out of Reddit, I stay out of Facebook groups, I stay out of all that stuff, primarily because in the past, I would make a statement, hey, read Dr. Sarno, and people would attack me. You know, I'm a scammer. What am I trying to do? I'm giving you false hope. No, this is, you know, decades, 40, 50 years worth of medical science proving this stuff, but they think we've got an agenda. So what I do is I just literally create enough content out there to attract the people who are open to it, who can learn about it. I never get attacked. Almost never. Like maybe 5 times in the past 4 years, I've had people kind of come after me a little bit. And I just respond kindly with compassion, saying, well, here's some resources if you're interested, but we can have a different opinion. And that has really benefited me because I don't have to deal with people attacking me online. Not everybody is open to this. And even people who might be open to it, they may not be open to it now. I've heard a lot of people saying, yeah, somebody gave me the Dr. Sarno book. I looked at it and I threw it across the room. This is BS. I'm not going to look at this, right? But a year later, when they're still struggling, they go, well, maybe I should read that book that's in the corner. Oh, right? All we can do is point in the direction and say, this is interesting stuff and it's helping people. And so, yeah, not everybody's open to it. But don't spend a lot of time and effort trying to convince people, because you can't. There's people in my own family, immediate family, my sister, my mother, my brother.
Yeah, I can relate.
They don't believe it. And I'm saying, well, I've got like a lot of people, like over almost 20,000 people subscribe to me on YouTube. And people saying all around the globe that I'm helping them get better. But what do I know? I'm just, you know, my sister's little brother. What do I know? I'm just Danny, right? So it's funny, but it's sad at the same time because I truly believe I can help. I met another lady that major hip pain. She's 60 and she's already had a hip replacement. She's going towards another one. I'm like, yeah, but this can help you. She's like, la, 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 I'm not listening. She may end up with a second unnecessary hip replacement because she's convinced she's got a bad hip. So I only help people who are asking to be helped. We can't help somebody.
Yeah, people who are meant to heal, they are gonna find this approach sooner or later.
Yeah. We cannot help somebody
Yeah,
against their will.
yeah, absolutely.
All
So
right.
then,
So,
coming to the next question, what is your message to the people who are so desperate, so hopeless that they are suicidal, bedridden, lost their jobs, in lot of pain, and just fed up with the life? What is your message to them?
number one, there is hope.
And they,
Go ahead.
yeah,
What were you going to say?
yeah. For the people who believe in this stuff, this message should be for the people who knows the mind-body syndrome.
Well, look,
For,
anybody
yeah,
who is desperate,
yeah,
there is hope. There are people getting better. Watch some success stories. There are plenty. If you search TMS success story on the internet, you're going to find them. If you go to my channel, I have a playlist of over 40 success stories. People are getting better. Many of the success stories a year ago were bedridden and wanted to die, but they're better now. So this is not falsehood. I'm not filling people up with, oh, just think positive and you'll be okay. No, this is accurate knowledge. This is based on medical science, pain science, brain science. This is how the human body and the system works. And when you understand that that's how it works, and if the brain can create all this pain, it can turn it off. That's the message is, this is real. This stuff works. Right. And I always say it in the success stories. If I post into, a text one, I'll always say, this stuff works, folks. And here's a story. Here's a story. Here's another story. So for the people that are deep in despair, I get it. I understand it. I just had somebody email me this morning saying, I don't know how much longer I can do it. And she is completely aware of this stuff. She's just struggling to teach her brain that she's safe. And so it's so common that people can get that full of despair. But yet, over and over again, I have people basically getting better from that pit of despair. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And the people who get better are the ones who embrace this and say, this makes sense. I know what causes it now. I know it applies to me. I believe there's a cure. There is. Not just me. I mean, Sarno figured it out 40 years ago. There is a cure. And here's the key. I'm capable of it. I can do this. I can implement these messages of safety to turn down this perceived danger and replace it with the messages of safety. So for anybody who's in that place, there is absolutely hope. If you are telling yourself a story that says, yeah, Dan, but I'm different. I have this, this, and that. Go back to square one. What causes pain? Take the assessments.
yeah,
So you can understand, does it apply to me? And if it does, now make a decision to go, this is my path now. If other people can get better, you can too. How come? Because other people who get better are human beings. Their system works just like yours. And that's a very hopeful
yeah. So the key message is there is always hope. As long as we are alive, there is always hope. I have been there, Dan have been there. So we got well, you can too. And there is a famous Rumi's quote. I think it goes something like this: your pain will one day become your cure.
Sure.
It's very philosophical, but yeah. So thank you, Dan, for one more elaborate explanation. So my next question is, some people say, well, I don't have any stress. I don't have any emotional issues or repressed emotions. How can they evaluate themselves on the scale of TMS? They can't justify they don't have stress or repressed emotion. Doesn't mean they don't have them. I think unconscious work in that way that it doesn't want you to know that you have repressed emotions.
So that's a tricky one.
Shed some light on
because a lot of people will tell me, Dan, but my life is good. My childhood was good.
Yeah.
This doesn't make sense for me, which is why I get away from repressed emotions are the problem. I don't even really say stress is the problem. Somewhere along the line, if you have chronic pain, your brain perceived danger, and the amount of fear and attention given to the pain is what makes it chronic and persistent. So do you have to completely, prescribe to Dr. Sarno's original theory that it's the repressed emotions and past traumas? No, that may have nothing to do with it. You may have been raised by a parent who had a lot of health anxiety. And so they taught you that, oh, you scratched yourself. Quick, let's get the antibacterial ointment and put that on and put a Band-Aid on it. And don't go outside without a coat. And, if you don't get enough sleep, you're going to have a horrible, sometimes we're just exposed to these things. A lot of it is societal, right? What's going on in the world around us. And so, no, you may not have quote unquote emotional issues, but everybody has emotions. You may just not perceive them to be a problem, which is wonderful. Not everybody does. That's okay. Doesn't mean TMS or perceived danger cannot create symptoms in you. Right? And so for anybody who says this doesn't work for me because I've got no emotional issues and I don't have much stress. As a matter of fact, I have somebody in my group right now who says to me that I've got no emotional issues. And I'm like, most of these people don't have emotional issues. They have emotions, but they're not issues.
Yeah.
He even referred to it as baggage. It's not baggage. Everybody's brain is perceiving some amount of danger. And some people, it's the emotions, and other people, it's bending over. And some people, it's I had an injury 5 years ago and it hurts every time it gets cold. Right? So perceived danger is a much better term than TMS, which says it's all about the emotions. Perceived danger says it could be anything. People run through a financial problem. They get divorced.
Yeah. I was just going to ask you the list of possible dangers that the brain might be perceiving. I think your boss can be the perceived danger. Going to the job on Monday can be a perceived danger. Or attending a ceremony, marriage ceremony, or if you are introvert or some social gathering, that could be a danger. So I think people should get the idea. There is no hard and fixed rule that these are the dangers. It can be anything that you are vulnerable to.
And more importantly, these perceived dangers do not have to be available to us in our conscious thinking mind. The subconscious is what turns on and turns off pain. Right? Here's an example. I cannot look at my hand and say, all right, hand, it hurt. Come on, brain, make it hurt. I just can't. I can't turn on pain intentionally, just like I can't turn it off either. What's controlling it? The subconscious, the autonomic nervous system. The warning signals happen automatically at a level that we are not consciously aware of. That makes sense?
Yeah. And the pain is just the output. You have to look into the wrong inputs that are being the wrong ports and react and plug into this. That's where the most work or the proper knowledge or accurate knowledge you put.
Sumit, your internet connection is not great. The audio has gotten very choppy right there, and you are frozen on the screen. Can you hear me? Hello? Nope, he's gone. All right, folks, we're going to wait for Sumit to come back on. I'm sure he's going to log back in. And here he is again.
Dan, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Right. Yes.
Sorry for the hiccup.
No problem. Not a problem.
I basically live in a village, so the coverage here is pretty poor.
Yeah, so the audio is a little bit choppy.
Did you hear me complete my statement? What I was saying?
It was choppy. So if you want to repeat it for the audience.
Oh, yeah. I was saying that the fact is that pain is just an output of the wrong inputs that are connected onto the wrong ports, that we can untangle them and correct them, just like you say, by the accurate knowledge and the education about the TMS. Pain is just a manifestation of wrong inputs that the brain is perceiving as danger. We just have to connect those inputs at the right places, that and teach the brain that these inputs or these sensations are to figure like bending, lifting, also to the emotional issues
Yeah.
like
The internet, the internet is not cooperating for you.
rage, guilt, shame, whatever. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. You have good Wi-Fi?
No, that's an issue. No Wi-Fi, just cellular.
Just cellular. Okay.
Is it working now?
You're frozen. It's not working great. But we'll see if we can get through this.
Should I pause the video and continue the? No, is the audio clear?
Well, if you would like, Sumit, you can turn off your video camera.
Yeah.
And see if we can just have you on audio. I can stay on camera because I've got a high-speed internet. But if you'd like to just go to audio, turn off your video, and we can have the conversation. See if that works. But you're frozen right now. And he's gone. He's coming back. Technology. We're talking halfway across the world, everybody. Sumit is in India, and I'm here in the United States. So, Sumit.
Yeah, Dan.
All right. So if it keeps
how
on
is it now?
if it keeps on happening, I'm going to tell you, maybe try to turn off your video.
Yeah. I was going to do that. Yeah, I have paused the video.
Okay, good.
Is my audio clear now?
I can still hear you. Yes, that should help.
Yeah.
Okay, so where were we?
I just completed my sentence. As the Dan says, we just have to educate the brain that the sensations or emotions are safe and they are not dangerous. And as we continue to educate the brain about the process, eventually the brain will learn that I'm safe. His body is safe, so I should not keep firing those pain signals, and eventually with patience the pain will dissolve. And it happened for many of the sufferers, so it should happen to you too. So just hold on, don't give up, and keep educating your brain. That is the key message here. So next question, Dan, do you think that the mainstream medical community is ever going to acknowledge TPD or TMS concept?
I believe they are starting to a little bit, but I'm not sure they know what to do about it. So major medical authorities are calling things central sensitization, idiopathic pain, which by definition means we don't know what's causing it, right? Okay. So they're aware of the presence of these symptoms or pains, that they don't know what causes it. But they're definitely not there yet with a solution. And part of that is because hospitals, educational institutions are all funded by medical technology companies, big pharmaceutical companies. It is a profitable venture to be in medicine and in pharmaceuticals. And if these organizations are what's funding the medical schools, it's not likely the medical schools are going to teach these doctors or these upcoming doctors that the best way to help somebody with back pain is to tell them, you're not broken, go home and live your life, right? Yeah. So there is a financial conflict of interest. I'm not suggesting these people are evil. It's just that that's the way the current system is, which is why Dr. Sarno bumped so many heads trying to introduce these concepts. It was not accepted. He was, people made fun of him. He was mocked. He was not accepted. And even the current medical doctors are still having a challenge with that. So I think it's up to people like you and me to spread the word at a ground roots level and get the message out to the masses. And, medicine will either catch up or they won't. But whether or not your doctor is involved, you can get better. I have plenty of people getting better after firing their doctor and saying, I'm not coming back to you. Now, look, doctors have a place in time. If you have an accident, you break a bone, go to the doctor. If you have a heart attack, go to the emergency room. If you have cancer, work with a doctor. There are many cases where medical doctors are wonderful. Chronic pain may not be one of them because they don't have the tools to understand it and treat it. All they have is medication, treatments, injections, chiropractic, physical therapy, surgeries, and
then
they don't help.
yeah yeah
Right.
So I was saying that the fact that they are not acknowledging doesn't mean we cannot get well by education. Absolutely, we can get well by our own,
Mhm.
by teaching the brain that we are safe.
Correct.
And it may take a while to understand the mainstream medical community because there is a huge scope for the mind-body medicine in the future. And guys like Howard Schubner, Alan Gordon, Lorimer Mosley, they are doing pretty much hard work in this field. And someday, the medical community is gonna recognize the efforts. And who knows what will happen in the future? But hope for the best.
What's interesting is I have had medical doctors as my coaching clients. Medical doctors are coming to me because they've got symptoms and pain, which I think is
That's
fascinating.
interesting.
I'm not a doctor. Somebody
Yeah.
was in Germany and they said there is one doctor in Germany who is aware of TMS and this mind-body concept, but he has a 6-month waiting list. And so this person could not get in to see this TMS doctor in Germany. You know what happened? The doctor in Germany
Yeah.
said, go watch Dan's videos.
Wow.
So, really wild. There's a doctor in North Carolina who refers his patients to me all the time. I've had a chiropractor as a client. So there are little pockets of people that are aware of this stuff, but in many cases are working in a system that just doesn't allow them to embrace this. So it's a challenge for mainstream medicine to pick it up. They're getting there partially with the concept of central sensitization, but then what they do is they put people through a 3-week pain management program where they go stay at this pain management place. And what are they doing? They are doing some psychotherapy. They're on heavy duty medications. They're doing physical therapy. So they understand that, okay, we don't know what's causing it, but then they're treating it like it's a body problem. So they're missing the mark, unfortunately.
Yeah. There is also one dermatologist, MD, doctor. She's in touch with me and she's listening to my videos and she's also understanding the mind body concept. And she heard my interview on her channel and then she got redirected to my channel. And then she said she's very happy to find an Indian guy and she's happy that I'm making the videos and it helped her speed up. She's also in recovery phase right now, so I'm sure she'll be watching this video in the future when I upload it. So
Right.
then the next question: the TMS and some mental illnesses like depression, panic attacks, anxiety. Uh, it's pretty much sure that the repressed emotions can cause anxiety and stress and all kind of panic attacks. So should one go for professional help in the field of psychiatry for that? I think they should.
It depends. It depends on the severity of what's going on. So, for example,
Okay.
some people have anxiety and depression because they have chronic symptoms and pain,
Yeah.
because it's caused by TMS. So, to those people, I'll say, you don't have to go separately and solve your anxiety and depression.
Okay.
focus on teaching your brain that you're actually not broken so that your brain will turn off the pain. Now you have no pain, which means your brain is a heck of a lot less to be anxious and depressed about. Anxiety and depression often take care of themselves, right?
Yeah,
And
that
so
makes
that's
sense.
mostly what I see in my community are people with the anxiety and depression are mostly depressed about their health and their symptoms. Now, if somebody has no other symptoms and they just have anxiety or depression, can this work help them? Absolutely. Why? Because if you're anxious, that's driven by fear. Anxiety is fear driven, and that creates the fight or flight. And so, doesn't it sound like to resolve anxiety, safety, just like it is with pain, safety would also reduce your anxiety? Yes. Depression. I believe depression is deep sadness. You're very, very sad. Plus, you've got no hope. That's what depression is in my mind. I'm really sad and I have no hope that it's ever going to get better. So I am quote unquote depressed. And then people are given the label. You've got depression. You've got anxiety. And now all of a sudden people feel I'm mentally broken. I'm emotionally broken. I have a mental health disorder. And that can be terrifying. And then they stay in that and they get this belief system. And now I've been on medication for most of my adult life. And. Well, in my impression, what if we started with the fact that you're not mentally or emotionally broken? You've just been through a lot of very difficult things. And that once you start teaching your brain that you're actually okay, and these heavy duty emotions called anxiety and depression can resolve themselves, you get some hope. Depression becomes sadness. Sadness is much easier to deal with. So I believe, and again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I do believe just through my own experience and seeing people get better from their symptoms that depression and anxiety are driven by fear, driven by perceived danger, and equally respond positively to a message of safety. Now, you asked about panic attacks. What's a panic attack? Panic attack is a perfect example of a physical manifestation, right?
Yes.
Heart rate, shallow breathing, hyperventilation, trembling. It's all created by panic. Well, panic is another word for fear, which is another word for perceived danger. So if you're having panic attacks, anxieties, depression, health anxiety, worries,
Yeah,
safety.
I think it's the culmination of the fear.
Yeah, safety is the solution. So, people will probably ask, so how long does this take? Right? I'm sure you get that question. How long does this
Yeah,
take?
yeah.
The answer to that question is as long as it takes for you to recover from the fear, for you to accept that this is what causes it. This applies to me. It makes sense for me. There's a cure and I'm capable of doing it. And let's dial down the fear. People can get better in weeks. Some people take months. Some people take years. Right? And
Yes,
so
then absolutely.
it's all driven by fear, including the mental health stuff, especially when some psychiatrist tells you you've got this mental health disorder and you're going to have it for the rest of your life. That's terrifying to most people. And so I'm going to encourage people to not really grab onto the labels they get, whether it be a medical label or a psychological label. If somebody says you've got this mental health issue, no, I don't. I'm just going through a tough time. Right? You've
Yeah,
got this
that
physical
is
issue.
very
You've got
helpful.
this medical diagnosis for your physical body. Okay, the MRI shows what my body is, but I don't have to hurt. Right? And I know it sounds like I'm anti-medicine. I am not. Everything that I teach is all based on how the physical body and the brain works. This is all science-based. I'm not a scientist, but I've studied this stuff for 25 years. And so this is all science-based. You want more science behind it? Go check out Lorimer Moseley. You mentioned that earlier. You mentioned him earlier.
Yes.
he's a pain scientist, runs clinical studies about pain. There's some real science behind this stuff. This isn't just Dan making it up. This isn't Sumit making it up. This has been going on for 50 plus years. And even before that, Claire Weeks was talking about anxiety, panic attacks, derealization, depersonalization, depression. She was talking about this in the 1940s. This stuff is not brand new. It's just been pushed to the side by mainstream medicine, which is very much driven by, here's the pill, take your pill. I hope that all makes sense.
Yeah, just like absolutely. This was $1 billion answer to $1 million question. And Paramjit ji, if you are listening, I hope Dan has cleared your doubt regarding some anxiety and depression issues. And then I think that goes as well to I remember reading my science textbooks in which it was mentioned earlier in the astronomy days. People tend to think that the Earth is the center of the universe and the sun and moon all revolves around that. And whenever any guy with a scientific temperament like Johannes, I think Nicholas Copernicus and Galileo, they tried to point in them in the right direction. The church guys that no, Earth is not the center. Earth is revolving around the sun, and the church guys tried to thrash them, imprison them. But we all know the truth. Sooner or later, it comes to the surface, and everyone has to accept it for what it is. So then I think this was a very wonderful session, and I tried to address as many questions, most of the common questions that people tend to ask me and you. And many of them and most of them are already answered by you in your daily videos. But my motive was that most of them get answered at a single place so that the people don't have to search each issue individually, and it might help them. And network caused some issues, and my video is paused. So, but that is not what the audience are here for. They are here for your wisdom, and I'm sure they got the great dose of it. And so, if we want to sum this whole interview in one sentence, if you can give a one line of advice to sum this all up once again, what would that be?
I'll sum it up this way. Relax. You're not broken, not mentally, physically, or emotionally. There's a way out of whatever your symptoms are, and this is it. So,
yeah, I think that sums, that gives the essence of all the knowledge that have been imparted to you through this interview. And then, if I might ask, what time is it there?
It is 2:19 in the afternoon on Friday. So it's getting late for you.
Okay.
It's after midnight for you.
No. Yeah, but it's privilege to be awake for the audience. It's past my bedtime, but that's absolutely okay. I've been thrilled. I was thrilled. I was looking forward to meet you, to share these FAQs with you and get your insights. So I think if audience have any further questions, they can ask it in the comment sections, and I will try to address them. And once again, Dan, thank you very much.
Sure.
From all the Indian audience too. And yeah, I think they will be thrilled to see you with me.
Excellent. And
once again, thanks a lot. Yeah.
Yes, with your permission, I will also share this to my community on my YouTube channel.
Absolutely. No permission required.
Right.
I owe you.
So you share it on your channel, I'll share it on mine. Hopefully we reach as many people as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna ask you, if you are not going to upload it, then at least paste the link in your community post or your first Facebook group. But you read my mind, so absolutely, it's
I'll definitely share it.
A great idea. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate you inviting
Yeah.
me on to talk about this stuff. It's really important. And keep in touch. Let me know how you're doing out there.
Yeah, exactly. Same to you. And you can wish me good night, and I can wish you a good day ahead.
All right, Sumit. Enjoy your night, and we'll talk soon. Take care.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. You too. Take care. Bye bye. Let me